Okay, and I'm going to share screen. Okay. Does everybody remember that I was asked this question about what's the difference between limitation and restriction? Do you remember that? And I thought this is quite a good thing to discuss in class, because these words are, I'm just going to cover up that so that you can't read what's on screen, so that I can ask you guys what you think, first of all, before we read anything formal on the internet. What do you think about these two words? They're obviously in the same milieu. They're the same ballpark, as Americans would say, but they don't mean exactly the same thing. We have an expression in English, you know, you've got to know your limitations, but we would never say you've got to know your restrictions. You would never say that, but you would say get to know your limitations. So before we actually read and look up references on these things, does anybody want to have a go? It could be a guess, or if you have, you know, if you think you actually know, let me know. Of the difference between these words. In fact, let's actually start off with getting some clarity on the meaning of the words. So what is the meaning of the word limitation? Anyone?
I think both of the words are same only. It's just that you want to do something but you can't do because there is a certain limitation or restriction.
Yes, that's right. So what you've covered there is why these words are in similar kind of ballpark, right? So I agree with everything there. But as we see, as we peel back the layers of the onion, do you know that expression, layers of the onion? Do you know that expression, by the way?
Will go in the depth of the matter.
Yeah, yes, yes. But did you know the expression? Have you heard it?
Not actually. I think I've heard it, but I don't remember it.
Okay, so everyone knows what an onion's like when you begin to peel it. You know, you've got layer and layer and layer and layer. How many layers has got an onion? You've no idea, right? Lots. And so we use that as an analogy to say, if I say, let's peel back the layers of the onion, what I'm meaning is what you said, right? We're going to sort of work our way in to, you know, so that's a good expression to know. In fact, since I've just mentioned that, we'll have a little diversion onto that, and then we'll come back, because hopefully Mona didn't tell me she wasn't coming, and Mona is kind of always in class, so we'll use this as a little delaying tactic. Layers of the onion. This means to delve into your problem one layer at a time to thoroughly understand what's causing all the trouble. Yeah? Or you could say peel the onion. So that's clear, yeah? Layers of the onion, or let's peel the onion. We're going to peel the onion here, right? So that's a little bonus point for you. Right. So let's look up the meaning of limitation first of all. A limiting rule or circumstance, a restriction, So this is not really helpful here in us understanding the differences between these things, right? So it's just giving us a kind of a ballpark idea. An act or instance of limiting, the quality or state of being limited, something that limits or restrains a certain period limited by statute, after which actions, suits, or prosecutions can be brought to the courts. So I guess the core meaning is there is some kind of line over which you're not meant to cross, right? It's a limitation. But we often personalize this and speak about your own limitations, right? Yeah, you know, you could speak about yourself or you could speak about somebody else. You could say, he knows no limitations. And in saying that, you're saying that that person is very unrestrained and they don't feel limited. The opposite statement might be, somebody knows his own limitations. So you might say to me, Alan, here you're going to visit Nepal? Yes. Are you going to climb Everest? I would say, no, I know my limitations. And what I mean by that is, I know I couldn't do that. Not that it would be impossible, but you know, I haven't done the requisite training. I'm not fit enough. You need to be sort of hyper ultra fit to do something such as that. And I you know, I haven't done that. And so consequently, I would say, I know my limitations, right? The idea of restriction is sort of similar, except that restriction is more what is being imposed on you, right? So you would say about a child, for example, their parents restrict them, meaning, you know, they say, you're allowed to go out to play, but you're not allowed to leave the street. So that's a restriction, a boundary being set by somebody else. And so you'd never speak of your own restrictions, you would speak of your own limitations. I know my limitations, but I would never say, I know my restrictions, because you don't restrict yourself, but others might restrict you. Hi, Raheli. Do you want to go on mute unless you're speaking in class? If you don't mind. You weren't speaking to me, Raheli, were you?
Yes, I'm
just gonna...
Hi, Mr. Lockhart.
Hi, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here with you.
Okay. So since I got started, there's a few have joined. Yourself, Raheli, Alida, and Galaxy A10. Who's Galaxy A10? Do you want to say hi?
Hello, no, I'm here in the same time with you now.
Hi, Alida. Remind me where you're from, Alida.
I'm from Colombia, but now I'm here in Austria.
Austria.
Austria, yes.
I didn't recognize you, Alida. Alida, for everyone else's benefit, is one of the longest members of the class, actually. But you used to put your camera on more. So it's nice to hear your voice, Alida. And thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Hi, Wee-son. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Alan.
So Wei-san is from China, for those who don't know. Alita's from Colombia. Rahel is from Iran. Alice is also from China. And Anjali is from Bihar in India. And Thingy is from Burma. So we have a very international crew today. Isn't that interesting? And I don't know where Galaxy A10 is. Can you speak Galaxy A10? Do you want to say hi? No? Okay. So that person is not speaking, but that's okay. Right. So getting back to limitations then. So I know my limitations with respect to language, right? I'm not very good with language. I can speak English though. Yay! So, but I know my limitations. I cannot speak Mandarin. As much as I'd love to be able to speak to Alice and Wei-san in their native tongue, and I would love to be able to speak Farsi and speak to all my lovely Persian friends. And I would also like to speak Spanish so that I could talk to Alida in her own lingo. Now, one day I will speak Spanish because I'm attempting to learn it. And maybe if I master that, I might pick another language and have a go at that. But in the meantime, I'm just trying to learn Spanish, but not making much progress on it, I have to say. So I know my limitations, right? But not my restrictions, right? My restrictions are what is imposed on me. Is that beginning to make sense? Somebody give me a thumbs up if I'm making sense. Or say, put your hand up or something if it's still not making sense. I'm getting a couple of thumbs up. Now, thank you for that. So let's look at this wiki diff here that is beginning to try and paint a picture of the difference between these words. I will read restriction first since it's smaller. The act of restricting or the state of being restricted. A regulation or limitation that restricts. The act of limiting. I don't really feel this page is actually particularly insightful.
What I have understood so far is that limitation is something that is the rule that is set for yourself by yourself, and
Yeah.
restriction is basically from the others, from outside, right?
That's exactly right. So that's how I understand it as well. So we're on the same page, everyone. So we'll leave it there. I think we know enough. But you can see why Mona asked that question, because it's that is confusing, and I had to think about it. Okay, so then I want to just go over a few words that I actually already advertised in the group chat that I might look at. And one is artistry. Artistry.
Artistry.
So what do we think that artistry means? Anyone want to go? Don't be shy.
In artistic way. I guess in artistic way.
Yeah.
Doing something.
Yeah, it's quite a simple thing, really. Look at the internet, it says creative skill or ability, the artistry of the pianist. Right, so somebody who has skill either in one of the arts, could be music, it could be to do with painting, it could be to do with modeling, you know, clay modeling, it could be I would almost add the thought of sophisticated. Artistry is you know, admirable. It's something you would admire. It's a very positive kind of thing. Let's look it up in Cambridge Dictionary, see how they define it. Great skill in creating or performing something such as writing, music, sport. You have to admire the artistry of her novels. Okay, everyone, that makes sense to everybody?
Things such as in writing, music, sport, etc.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just say hi to those who have joined while we've gotten started. Hi, Shweta. Nice to see you again.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir. Hello, everyone.
Good to hear your voice. And Prince Kumar. Hi, Prince Kumar. Do you want to say hi? You don't have
Hi,
to.
sir.
Don't want
Good
to.
morning.
Hi there. Hi. Where are you from? Where are you from?
I'm from India.
India. Okay. Thanks for
Yes, sir.
joining. Thanks for joining.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to just quickly mention a word that sounds a bit like artistry, but it doesn't mean anything to do with it. Sophistry. Sophistry is a good word to know. What does sophistry mean when it's at home?
So sophists were actually more or less like it's a very ancient term as far as I know, and it were basically the teachers like who used to like in the ancient time people who had so much knowledge and use who does the job of teaching. So those were sophists.
Sir, is this word similar to sophisticated?
Good guess. No, it's not though. But
Okay.
that is a, you know, I can see why you're saying that. So what you said, Anjali, I won't disagree with that. We'll see what it says when we look it up, but I certainly haven't heard that, but I won't disagree with you. But let me just explain what sophistry is. I'll give you Alan's definition, and then we'll look at what the dictionary says. So sophistry I think I'm thinking of specious. So let's just look it up. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say the wrong thing on the recording. Yeah, no, it is a bit like specious. You'll see why I said that in a minute. I'll come to specious in a minute. Sophistry is the clever use of arguments that, this is the key bit, that seem true, but are really false in order to deceive people. So it's often used, maybe somebody go on mute who's speaking. When I say go on mute, by the way, please don't take offense, right? Anybody can unmute themselves if you want to say something. And please do, don't have me doing all the talking, which is why I'm trying to encourage you to take part. But if you're not, and there's any background noise, it's better to go on mute, right? So this is used in politics a lot. So to be accused by somebody else in, say, a parliament of sophistry it's akin to saying you're lying, right? It's akin to that. It's a slightly more polite, but basically that's what you're doing, because you're telling people that you're deceiving, right? So that's what sophistry is. So sophistry is things that seem true and are really false. So there is the word sophist that, let's have a look at that Anjali mentioned. Yeah, so I'm not saying the definition that you came up with there. Let's look at sophistry in a sentence. What? When at a loss for good reason, he had recourse to sophistry And when heated by altercation, he made unsparing use of sarcasm and invective. Wow, what a sentence, right? So this is a statement that is pejorative. It's putting somebody else down, right? And it's saying when at a loss, right? When at a loss, that means that's nothing to do with financial loss. That's got to do with loss in the sense of an argument, right? You're not doing well in your argument. And so he had recourse, right? So in other words, he resorted to sophistry. He started saying things that seemed to be true, but really were not true. That's really the key there. Seemed to be true. I can say something to you and it can sound, a good word is plausible, right? Plausible. Sounds, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And when heated by altercation, altercation being a verbal fight, right? Some kind of major disagreement, he made unsparing use of sarcasm and invective. Sarcasm being well, yeah, invective. First of all, invective is just where you're essentially criticizing somebody directly, right? And that would be an invective, using words. And sarcasm is where you say something and you mean the opposite. So, you know, oh, if I said, oh, he's really clever, but I don't mean he's really clever, I mean he's really stupid. That's sarcasm, yeah. Invective, insulting, abusive, or highly critical language. So we were looking at sophistry in a sentence. They're a strange blend of sophistry, superstition, and sound sense and solid argument, right? So sophistry, things that sound true but are not really. Superstition, just, you know, strange ideas that people have about things but are not based on logic. Sound sense and solid argument. So basically, who knows where this sentence is coming from, but it's saying that these people are a right old mixture. There's something going on here as well that is a little bit of artistry, to coin a phrase. You see this sentence has 4 S's. See that? 5 S's, in fact. See that? So sophistry, superstition, sound sense, and solid argument. So if I am articulating that with my mouth, if I'm saying it out loud, there's a sibilance coming in. Sibilance. Sibilance is that sound of the S. So the sophistry and superstition and sound sense and solid argument. See that? That repeated. So that is very effective when you're making a speech. That repeated use of terminology. Like one example I've used before is what Martin Luther King said when he gave his famous "I am a dream" speech, and he speak about one day I want to live in a nation where my 4 little children will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Everyone heard that expression? Heard that? So it's very famous. Now, if you analyze what he's saying not by the color of their skin. Now there's 2 k's there. Even though skin begins with an S, the k sound is very prominent. So not by the color of their skin. See that? But by the content of their character. See that? So k. And so the technical term for that is consonance. Consonance. So consonance is the repeat of a consonant in poetry or in a speech for effect. And the opposite, if it's a vowel being repeated, it's called assonance. Assonance. And both of these terms, consonants and assonance, are examples of onomatopoeia, right? Where you're making a sign. It's not really onomatopoeia. Yeah, no, it's not onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is where you say something and what you're saying sounds like the thing that you're describing. So the buzz of a bee, right? Buzz sounds a bit like what a bee might sound, right? Or if I say the crash of a drum, the crash sounds like a drum. See, that's onomatopoeia. I can't remember what, there is an overarching term for consonants and assonance. Can't remember what it is. Okay, so
Could you please say the word again? What was that one word for repeat of consonants and repeat of vowels?
this is it here. Consonants. Agreement or compatibility between opinions and actions, right? So that's one definition, right? But then here's the one I was looking at here, the recurrence of a similar sounding consonants in close proximity, especially in prosody, written things.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other one was assonance, resemblance of sound between syllables of nearby words arising particularly from the rhyming of two or more stressed vowels, but not consonants. So not like sonnet and porridge, right? But also from the use of identical consonants from different vowels, killed, cold, cold. Okay, so those two words, assonance and consonants, are very sophisticated. Most people wouldn't know this, all right? Right, so we were on the subject of sophistry. Have we figured out sophistry? Are we relatively comfortable with sophistry? Yeah. And so the other word that's similar in meaning is the word specious. Specious. And again, this means superficially plausible, but actually wrong. A specious argument. So Anjali comes in vehemently, making a very strong point. And if I said to her, that's a specious argument, that's really quite a put down. Because what I'm saying is, what you say sounds plausible, but actually is not. So for example, somebody might say, you know, I am a strong advocate of electric vehicles because they're better for the environment. Oh, really? How so? I say. And then they begin to say, well, there's no emissions and there's this and there's that and so on, all these benefits. And then I might retort by saying, yeah, but you still need to burn fuels in order to charge these vehicles. So although there's no emissions from the vehicle, there is emissions in powering that vehicle indirectly. So your argument is specious. See? So your argument sounded plausible, but was maybe false. I'm not taking a stance on electric vehicles, by the way. I'm just using that as an illustration of the point. Specious. Now, if you then say, well, what's the difference between sophistry and specious? Sophistry is where I am deliberately trying to mislead. And specious is not necessarily so, right? I mean, I could use a specious argument to mislead, but that's not the thrust of it. The thrust of it is I'm just misunderstanding, you know. But sophistry, the thrust of it, I'm going to try and deceive. I'm going to say something that sounds kind of plausible, but actually I know it's not true. That's what sophistry is. Okay.
We also have a similar word, suspicious. So what's the difference between this word and suspicious.
Okay, so first of all, let's get the pronunciation right. So the pronunciation is suspicious, right? That's the word you meant, isn't it, Anjali? Suspicious, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't say suspicious, we say suspicious. So suspicious means I'm suspicious that you're really a spy. So he says nothing to do with specious. Suspicious means I suspect something. I suspect something, right? Having or showing cautious mistrust of something or someone. So if I say I'm suspicious of Anjali, I will not confide in her, right? Because I've got a mistrust or a distrust in her. I'm suspicious, right? But I don't know for sure. So it's just, that's why I'm suspicious. I'm not convinced. And that's why when somebody is coming and getting arrested, they're called a suspect, right? They're not called a convict, they're called a suspect because they've been suspected of committing a crime, but until they're proven guilty, I mean, you could say he was caught red-handed, he had a gun in his hand and the gun was smoking and the body lay on the ground. So he's the suspect, but everyone believes he's guilty, right? But he's not, he can't be pronounced guilty in law until he is actually proven, because maybe he was framed in some way. Okay, so framed is an interesting word. The very innocuous meaning is I'm going to frame a picture, right? I'm going to put it, I've got this beautiful portrait. Now I'm going to frame it and put it on the mantelpiece. That's what frame means, right? But it is another meaning. So that simple meaning is surrounded by a border. There you go, a framed photograph, right? A pair of silver frame glasses. So my glasses are not silver framed, they're plastic. But it's not coming up here, but
Sir, excuse me, sir. It's another meaning is also organized or some yeah, organized, arranged, similar words.
organized and arranged, yes, but not framed. A framed is not different, is a different word. I've never heard framed used in that context, Shweta. Do you say that in India? Would you frame a
Yes,
party?
yeah, sir. I read somewhere like we use, for example, frame the sentence from by using these words. Okay, so like I'm just giving example. So from there I read that a frame is also used for arranging something.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Clever. Good girl. That's good. You're right. So you could say I could frame a sentence. So my granddaughter, Marcy, many of you have seen pictures because I share them a lot, is 2, but she can't quite frame a sentence yet. Right? She can't frame a sentence. So we would use it in that context, yes. Or yeah, we use it a lot to do with language. But I wouldn't frame a party. I would arrange a party. Or I would organize a party. I could organize my thoughts. Frame is you would tend to say frame to do with things like sentences. You framed a sentence, that would be a common thing. But there's another meaning of frame. It's not coming up in the dictionary, but It's to do with crime. Framed for a crime. What's another word for framing someone? Setup, maybe? Setup? Have you heard of that? A setup? Or fabricate, framed. Yeah, here you go. In the United States criminal law, a frame-up or setup is the act of framing someone. That is, providing false evidence or false testimony in order to falsely prove someone is guilty of a crime. Generally, the person who is framing someone else is the actual perpetrator of the crime. So somebody, you know, say he's getting interviewed by the police, by a newspaper, and says, "Here, you've got 2 years. You've got to go." And he says, "Yeah, but I was framed." That response is saying, "Yeah, but I wasn't guilty of the crime. I was set up. It looked like I did it, but I didn't. See, I was framed." So that's, you use that in Britain too, in English-speaking countries, but it's a particularly heavy use in America. Framed, I was framed. Everybody comfortable with that? Give me a thumbs up. Somebody give me a thumbs up. Or interrupt me and ask a question on it if it's not clear. Yeah, okay. Right, let's move on then. So here's a good word that I also shared with you, and you might have looked it up already. Formulaic. Formulaic. I'm guessing most people don't know this word, so I'm going to go straight into the definition. Let's see what it sounds like. Formulaic. Constituting or containing a set form of words. A formulaic expression such as once upon a time, right? So there's lots of children's stories that begin once upon a time. There was 3 teddy bears. And so lots of children's stories begin like that, right? So you call that formulaic, right? Produced in accordance with the mechanically followed ruler style, formulaic disposable pop. Now, in being used in that sense, is quite pejorative, right? Somebody who's been in the class for a while, or just who knows, just explain what I mean by the word pejorative.
Yeah, it's very disrespectful.
Yes, so it used for criticizing someone.
Excellent. Well done, Shweta. Yeah. Putting something down, saying something negative, that is what pejorative is. And the other word that I've often explained that's very like that, but it's different, is?
Derogatory.
Excellent, Anjali. I knew you would get that. Right. So when I say pejorative, we've done these words in the past. If you go back old lessons, you'll discover them. We've done them at least twice in the lessons. So getting back to this, if I say this, formulaic disposable pop, speaking about pop music, it's saying that it's being quite pejorative. It's putting it down. It's saying that they're just using a formula. There's a certain style, and it isn't particularly creative. Formulaic, i.e., meaning that it's coming from a formula. There's a basic formula there. So consequently, it's not very good. Formulaic. So think of formulaic as coming from a formula. And most of us know what a formula is, right, from mathematics, yeah? Okay, everybody comfortable with formulaic?
Sir, how we can use this word in sentence?
All right, good question. In sentence. Its formulaic designs feature a standard collar and need either 2 or 3 buttons down the front. Right, so that's describing a certain kind of dress, right? Carefully chosen loving words will be more powerful and memorable than any formulaic recitation. And those personal sentiments can be carried through many years as they are renewed with every loving gesture, phrase, and touch. Embarrassing, insincere, formulaic flattery makes God mellow. The Solihull Design Studio, led by David Bash, produced a rather formulaic scaling down of the larger car. So that's, again, this is quite pejorative, right? It's just saying all they did was scale down another car a little bit to create it. The dodge move does get a bit formulaic after a while, but there's enough in this game to keep the interest going. So I don't know which sport this statement originates in, but it's basically saying that somebody is dodging, moving sharply right or left in order to avoid a tackle. And it's basically saying that that's quite formulaic. Shweta, you comfortable with that now?
No, sir, I couldn't understand.
Okay. Let's look at more sentences then, no problem. I'm just looking through these for a simpler example. Okay, these are all pretty good, although they confirm what I pretty much expected. They're all pretty formulaic. So if I'm looking at something and I'm not very impressed because they're all following a very kind of standard style, I'm saying that they're formulaic as if they're coming from a formula. Does that make sense? Do you understand that sentence? No, not yet. Right, here's another sentence. And yet, by comparison, our stuff seems so formulaic and uninspiring.
अरे भाई क्लास चल रहा है देखिए वही हम देख रहे हैं मैडम देखिए आप ही अभी ऊपर लिखने ही वाले थे टाइम चलिए बैठिए थैंक गॉड आप आए तो कम से कम
Shweta, are you in class or are you just so I think
My mistake.
right, so Shweta, are you getting this now? Do you understand what formulaic means?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for example, you know these people that churn out a lot of movies, a lot of books, and they're very similar in style, like Dan Brown books, for example, right? They're called page turners, where he ends every chapter on what's called a cliffhanger, right? And you just really want to keep reading because he's just, is she just about to die or not? This kind of thing. You could describe those novels as formulaic. They're very similar. The character names changed and stuff like that, but it's regurgitating a very similar set of things, right? They're not particularly creative. They're formulaic. So if I say that, I'm really relegating Dan Brown down, right? So he's never going to win a Booker Prize, right? He's never won a Booker Prize. He'll never win a Booker Prize because he's so formulaic. Everybody on my same page? Yeah?
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's move beyond formulaic. Right, here's I'm going to teach an expression now, which we use a lot. It's in the teeth of. Anybody want to offer me a suggestion as to what that means? What is it if something is in the teeth of something? Teeth. Okay. Let's learn this expression. Directly against, right? In the teeth of the gale, we set off for the farm. In spite of opposition or difficulty. The firm has expanded its building contracting division in the teeth of recession, right? So in the teeth of is in spite of, no matter, right? So he believes in his enduring popularity despite the booing of the crowd. See that? So he smiled and waved at the crowd in the teeth of the jeers, right? So it's like directly against is the idea of in the teeth of. It's just an expression. And I heard it in the last week. So every time I hear an expression, every week in life now, my brain is tuned. Does class know that? No. So I write it down. And you get all these things that really do occur here. Like every single word I've done this week is like something I've heard in the last week, or most of them anyway. So, okay. In the teeth of, in direct contact or collision with. Sailing in the teeth of a hurricane. There you go. See that? The rule had been imposed by conquest in the teeth of obstinate resistance. Directly against, right? Okay. You're now armed with a new expression, which I want to see you all using. I want you to regale me with your use of language. Now, here's a word that none of you will know. I am sure. Affordances. Right? Affordances. Now, here's what this word means. It's a use or purpose that a thing can have that people notice as part of the way you see or experience it. So for example, if you walk into a room and you see a chair, you immediately know what a chair is for. A chair is for sitting, right? So the affordances of a chair are obvious, right? So it's what you use an object for. And it's often used in technology these days when people talk about mobile phones and the apps and the affordances of like how you use a phone and so on. You know, somebody from 20 years ago like wouldn't believe it, right? But to us nowadays in our generation, the affordances of a mobile phone are kind of obvious. So let's look at some examples. Selecting an appropriate measure of coupling strength depends critically on recognizing and describing the underlying affordance effectivity match target system. So that's a bit of a technical sentence. Let's forget that. The main affordance of categorical reference, including naming, is that it can be accomplished with little interactional work, often by a single word. Admittedly, a dynamic system and systems account of an affordance field waits significant further development. There you go. There's a better example. In other words, she does not perceive the affordance of the object. So what that statement is saying is, she is looking at an object, but she doesn't know what to do with it. Right? Doesn't know how to turn it on, turn it off. Doesn't know what you're meant to do with this thing. Right? What is this thing? Right? Here you go. The icon becomes a perceived affordance by associating the function of the printer with the printer icon. So this is speaking about the little thing you get on web pages or in an application where you see a wee picture of a printer, right? And when you see that, you know that if you click on that or click your finger on it, it will print the document you're looking at, right? Or print the screen. That's an affordance. Similarly, although most of you, since you're all really young in comparison to old me, old teacher, if you see a little disk in an application, if you're in PowerPoint or Word or Excel, if you see a little disk icon, you know if you click on that, it will save the document, right? But none of you have probably seen a computer floppy disk before because we got rid of them years ago, right? But in the old days, when you saved the document, it went onto a little disk drive, right? So we still have kept that affordance around. It's a legacy of the way computers used to work, right? So that's the word affordance. So A10 says, I can't hear you. Well, that's because she hasn't. Can you hear me now, A10? Can you hear me now? She's not in the meeting. She must have left. Okay.
Are you asking from me? Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay now.
What's your name? Sorry.
Annie.
It's Annie. Hi, Annie. Thanks for joining.
Hi. Yeah.
I just saw your message. Sorry, I didn't see it earlier at half an hour ago.
Yeah, actually, my phone got some problem. That's why.
All right then. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Annie. Okay. So let's learn. We've done affordance. Now, here's another really good word, right? Finagle. Finagle. Does anybody know what finagle means? It's not super common, but people would know what this means. They wouldn't use it every day of the week.
Is it something similar to fanatic that we did earlier?
No. Finagle is a way of extracting something from somebody dishonestly or deviously.
It's kind of cheating. Is it kind of a cheating word? Yeah.
Exactly, Annie. You've got it in one. Yeah. So, you know, I could try and finagle you out of $5, right? So I'm trying to get some money out of you. Or I could also try to finagle what your opinion is about something, but you don't want to tell me. But I could say, I'll find a way of finagling it out of her, right? Yeah. So finagle, to extract, but to be devious about how you do that, right? So let's look at sentences with it, right? In a sentence. He finagled me out of my property. How he finagled 4 front row seats in the game, I'll never know. So somebody managed to get 4 front row seats, right? How did he do that, right? People don't really know, but he managed it somehow. So he finagled it, right? how someone finagled his way into the, he somehow finagled his way into the army as a lieutenant, right? For all of my lovely Indian friends, right? It's only in India you see a picture like that. I find that very funny. Because you can believe this will happen, right? That wasn't a setup. Somebody really did get all those bricks on his bicycle. And I wouldn't really like to be him if he fell. The finagle factor is still at work. How someone wish you could benefit from finagle a day off from work. There you go. Hey, Alan, how come you're here today? Oh, I managed to finagle a day off work, right? So it's not always accusing somebody of dishonesty, right? It doesn't always have to be dishonest, right? So, I was walking down the street and bumped into Annie, and I managed to finagle a piece of chewing gum from her, right? So you see how I used it there? There's no dishonesty there. I just managed to somehow, you see how I did that? There's no dishonesty there. But if it was money or maybe an opinion held that you didn't want to reveal, then I'd maybe be using deceit. But if it's something innocent or innocuous, harmless, then it's not really critical. Finagle. Okay, everybody comfortable with finagle? Yeah. Right. Right, finagle. Okay, here's a good word that I want to teach you, which some of you will know. Commemorate. See this word here? Commemorate. What does that word mean?
I think it means that to remember someone,
Yeah.
like someone who has passed away.
Yeah, you got it. It doesn't have to be a person, right? It can be, you can commemorate the war, the ending of the war, a date, or you could commemorate Independence Day of your country. Yeah. So it's any kind of remembrance. So it's like memorate. It's that memory is that but commemorate is some kind of a public, it's usually a public celebration, right? But it could be private, the widower always had a quiet day on the 1st of February because he was commemorating the death of his wife who passed away many years ago, right? So commemorate meaning active memorial of an event or a person. There you go, a commemorative plaque. Commemorate. Fairly simple meaning. Good word to know. Everybody comfortable with that? Commemorate. Right. Now I'm going to teach you an expression that's very common, and you absolutely need to know the meaning of this. But I don't know whether you will know it right now. Murphy's Law. Anybody know what Murphy's Law is?
I found it. If anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. Something like that.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it means. Yeah. A supposed law of nature expressed in various humorous, often humorous, popular sayings to the effect that anything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? So I'm planning a big birthday bash tomorrow. But you know what? It's going to rain. Murphy's law, right? That's that statement would have been repeated 100 times yesterday in the country, right? You know, Murphy's law. It's going to rain tomorrow, right? You know, Murphy's law. I'll discover I've got COVID and I have to isolate. You know, if it's gonna go wrong, it'll go wrong, right? Murphy's law. Murphy's law. And Murphy would be what would come from what country do you think? Where would he come from? Anyone?
Is it a god from some
No.
culture? Because
No. Where does Murphy? I know the answer to this, of course. Where does Mercy come from? But I want to see if I can find. Here you go. Ireland. If your name is Murphy, you're from Ireland to be sure, to be sure. So there you go, right? There is 50,000 bearers of the name in Ireland alone. So there you go. So Murphy is an Irish name and Murphy's law comes from over there. Okay. And I can make fun of the Irish because you know what? I am Irish. Did you know that? I was born and bred and buttered, as we say, in Belfast, Ireland. So there you go. Right. So that's Murphy's law.
but how is this connected to Murphy? I mean, I'm not able to understand what is the meaning. How is this meaning connected to this storm?
So the question that Angeli's asking is really a question of etymology, right? And etymology means how does that word mean what it means? Like, where does it come from? How does it originate? That's what she's asking, right? And my answer to that is, I don't know. I have no clue. So let's look it up together and see if we can find it. Oops. It was born in America. Amazing. It was born in Edwards Air Force Base in 1949, North Base. It was named after Captain Edwards Murphy, an engineer working on Air Force Project MX-9, blah, 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 designed to see how sudden deceleration a person can stand in a crash. Well, who knew? One day after finding that a transducer was wired wrong, he cursed the technician responsible and said, if there's any way to do it wrong, he'll find it. The contractor's project manager kept a list of laws and added this one, which he called Murphy's Law. Actually, what he did was take an old law that had been around for years in a more basic form and gave it a name. Shortly afterwards, the Air Force doctor who rode his sled on the deceleration track to a stop pulling 40 Gs gave a press conference. He said that their good safety record on the project was due to a firm belief in Murphy's Law and in the necessity to try and circumvent it. Aerospace manufacturers picked it up and used it widely in their ads during the next few months, and it soon became quoted in many news and magazine articles. Murphy's Law was born. Now, isn't that interesting? I'm glad you asked the question, Angeli, because I would never have thought to look it up. So the expression doesn't originate in Ireland, but Captain Murphy, he was a son of Ireland. That's for sure, for sure, for sure. Okay, so we know what Murphy's Law means, right? Murphy's Law. Right, we're past the hour now, boys and girls, so we'll maybe do one more word. Yeah, one more word. And here it is. Umpteen. It's coming up too fast, right? You all seen how I spelt it. What does umpteen mean? We all know what a teenager is. And we all know what preteen is. Not quite a teenager, somebody who's 11 or 12. She's preteen, she's only 11. Umpteen has got nothing to do with that. Umpteen means lots, basically. Lots. Indefinitely, a lot of. You need umpteen pieces of identification to cash a check. Right? Umpteen means a whole lot. The umpteenth time. Umpteen. So it's like no definite number. It doesn't mean 100. It doesn't mean 50. It just means lots. Right? Whenever you visit India, you need to present about umpteen pieces of information. They want to know where your grandparents were born. I mean, what? I am not exaggerating. They want to know where your grandparents were born. And I think it's because if your grandparents came from Pakistan, they're going to buy you. I find that very funny, right? So umpteen is lots, right? So how many students did you have in class today, Alan? I wouldn't say umpteen. There was a handful. There's been, you know, not quite a dozen. There's nine of us, including me. So 8 students, right? That's typically what it is. It's up to about 10. Not umpteen. If it was 30, I would say it was umpteen. Lots. There was umpteen. How many times has Anjali been in this class? Umpteen times. Umpteen. Right? Okay, everyone. I think we're all done for one day. Well, for the morning class. We're going to have another class tonight, by the way. I don't expect you all to sit through listening to me again, but you're certainly welcome to join again if you're free. But it's in many hours time from now. It's in 10 hours time, right? It's going to be at 6 o'clock UK time. So you can figure out what that is in your time. So Wee-son will have no chance of joining then because it's going to be in the small hours of Monday morning. So I don't expect him. But that time is very good for those in the Western Hemisphere. So Alida, I'm hoping to see Io later, your compatriot from Colombia. I think she'll join me later. And Alida.
6 o'clock UK time, right?
Yeah, 6 o'clock UK time, yeah. Alida, you have been very quiet. You are normally quite. You usually got lots to say. I hope I'm not embarrassing you by addressing you directly. But Alida and I are old friends. She's been coming to this class since about June, I don't know, long time. Anyway, so there's another class today. I'm going to pick up from the next word on my list after umpteen, right? Which is going to be balcony. Very simple word. But we'll look at balcony and mezzanine, which is a similar meaning word that the Americans use. And then we'll go into dismissive, ruminate, subscribe, and then we'll talk about work in progress. So some interesting words coming up. Hope you all enjoyed that. And we'll see you all anon. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Mr. Alan.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Alice. I seen your message. Thank you. Bye bye now.